Good morning. How are we all today? Sorry, I was just getting prepared. My name's Linda and I'm currently in Brisbane, Australia. Oh, excuse me. It was a long day yesterday. And now, we've been spending the last 2 days talking about grief, okay? And it's not grief as in someone else died, it's grief about how parts of us have never been recognised. So it's a whole different ballgame. As we've gone through the last couple of days, we've begun to understand the need that we have to recognise where we need to be nurtured because it didn't happen in our childhood, okay? Now, it's tough stuff to understand this, to look at it, but when we do, our brain gains a comprehension of things that we've never understood, we've never had explained to us. Okay, we've never experienced it. More than anything, we've never experienced it, and that can often leave us with a feeling of either there has to be more, or there's a void, or a real emptiness. And often we use the expression, I don't know who I am. And everything, all of it's quite valid and more. Now today, as we go into understanding grief with complex PTSD, we're going to go through the next part. So now we've had an understanding of the 4 different areas where we need to nurture ourselves. Sorry, I need to breathe. I've got to slow down. There's so much I want to do and explain and equip you with that I get really excited. And I forget to breathe. I'm like, it's okay. And often that happens for a lot of us too. We forget to breathe. Now, so being motivated to grieve can feel like the dental appointment you keep putting off. But we do it because it is necessary, okay? And look, when we don't grieve, the pressure that we feel inside of ourselves, it's very strong. It can feel like oppression because we can't move things around inside of us. We haven't touched the things inside of us. We don't feel all that we want to feel. We don't feel full of life because we're carrying so much inside of us, okay? So we've got to grab hold of the motivation to grieve. And this is what I've just said, our soul will ache until we can reconcile within ourselves that we grew up with parents who abandoned us, okay? And it is challenging to want to own that. And for me, the challenge was to own it from both my parents because my dad had gone and he'd left, and my mum became the sole provider, the roof over my head, the food on the table, the clothes that I wore, etc., etc. So for me, it was really hard to emotionally comprehend that she abandoned me. And now I have to accept it. I work through the acceptance of it because I can see that she did. I don't blame her because I see it going back many generations in the women in our family. And it's just mind-blowing. For my mum, just before she died, she opened up and told me her feelings towards her mum. Now, her mum doesn't talk about any of this at all. Okay, she's still alive, but we don't talk about emotions. We don't address those issues at all. She can be very vocal about her opinion, and that's okay. But we don't talk about this deeper stuff. And her mother abandoned 4 girls, left them on a farm, ran away while their dad was out droving, which is out on a horse, getting cattle to come in. So when we look back at the genetics of it, it gets passed down. So we can't have blame. That's pointless. Blame is when we're pointing outwards and our fingers are letting us know that we need to look inwards. We need to recognise how we're feeling about it all. Okay? And I love my mum. And I've loved my mum since forever. It's just that she didn't know how to parent. She didn't know how to be a mum in the emotional sense, because she also kept all her emotions on the inside, okay? Nobody ever knew. No one knew. It was simply that when she first got breast cancer, I said to her, Mum, what are all the emotions that you're hiding on the inside? And it wasn't till 2.5 years later that she told me that 2 doctors had said to her breast cancer can point towards issues with the mother. It's not all the time, but for my mum, it was true, and having 2 doctors say it to her, it led her to be able to tell me some of the things that she was holding on the inside that she'd never told a soul, okay? And science is now proving that everything that we're holding on the inside is affecting our health. So we need to have these conversations, not just with the people around us, but we need to own these emotions within ourselves. And I do wish that my mum could have loved me in the manner that was emotional as well as providing for me physically. It's hard, okay? This is why we've got to be motivated to do this. I'm motivated to do this because I never wanted my kids to carry forward what was handed down to me. I could see the patterns in the generations, and that's not the only pattern, okay? Let's go forward. We grieve until we can fully come to terms with the depth of how our caretakers were not caretakers, okay? So what you're seeing now in me is deep stuff, but it will come up, okay? And it comes up from like really deep down, and you really feel it in your stomach area, and it's like great, deep, wrenching cries. But we also need to know a big part of who I am, so we know we're affirming of ourselves that I'm the adult and I'm going to make my way through this, because for me, I've been here not to this particular space, but I've grieved a lot before, and I know I come out the other side. As children, it can feel endless, okay? So as adults, we're left with that sense that if I start down this process, it'll be endless, but it's not the truth, okay? We have to get into an awareness of our inner child who thinks that this process will be endless, and go, no, this process is not endless. I simply need to sit down, journal, have my cry, recognise what it meant for me, and then I have to get up and adult again. I have to get up and do my daily chores. I do my work. I have to go to work. I have to look after my kids, etc., etc. So that's part of the self-talk that you can give yourself around knowing that this process is not endless, okay? And it opens up our heart center so much. And we need our heart center open up. We need our heart open up because it comes into the science part of it as well, where we've got to let more oxygen in. We've got to have it flowing more in order for our body to be healthy too. We grieve until we stop blaming ourselves for their abuse, neglect. And if we're brave enough, we'll be willing enough to understand that we're not blaming them, we're actually blaming ourselves. We believe, for me definitely, I believe that there was something wrong with me, that my mother couldn't show me that emotional love. As my mum and stepfather found out when I was a teenager, I was pretty full on with the emotions because I wanted answers. Like I've said, they call me Elizabeth Taylor because they reckon I was a drama queen, but I wasn't. From the perspective that I wanted to sit down and connect with them emotionally. I wanted to have those conversations, and because they gave me no open doors to do that, I used to write letters and stick them under their pillows, and in the hope that they would understand that I want to have these conversations, I want to understand. But even the letters, they didn't come to me and want to have those conversations. And for me, the grief on that side has been very much understanding that it wasn't my fault. I did do everything possibly to have those conversations that I needed to have, okay? But also that they weren't equipped, nor did they try to be equipped to have those conversations. And it comes down to it being that simple. They made a choice and they left me no avenue to have emotional conversations, okay? And I still love my stepfather. He was a good father to me. But I now know that even as an adult, I can't go to them, and he's remarried. I can't go there and have emotional conversations. If I go there just to say g'day and catch up once every, few years now, it's simply about what's happening on the outside of our lives, where my kids are up to, where I'm up to. They tell me where they're up to, but there's never any conversation about the many years that we didn't talk. Okay, it just doesn't happen. And part of us has to come into a place of acceptance that that's just who they are. So I'm getting a bit sniffly. It is hard. It is hard to do life without our families, okay? We have the option to now create families, people around us who value us and who we can have those emotional conversations with. And I do have a wonderful bunch of close friends who I can have genuine emotional conversations with, okay? Now, some of this you will need help with whether it's with somebody like me who's an actual trauma coach or a therapist. Take hold of this information and work through it with them, okay? Because it's something that we need to bring into our prefrontal cortex, our thoughts, our processing, so that we can emotionally have it in order in our amygdala. We grieve until we fully realise that unhealthy parenting practices gave us the gift that keeps giving, complex PTSD. Okay? And as you can see, it does keep giving. But at the end of the day, we become the most compassionate, kind, caring people. And we have such an abundance of love in our lives that we get to share it with many, many other people who have never known love as well. We grieve until we understand our automatic self-abandonment is a reenactment of our parents not being there for us. Okay, so we'll go into looking into more about how we abandon ourselves, and the simplest way at the moment to understand it is every time we have emotions we run for the hills too, instead of being able to sit with them and process them. And that's okay, because we didn't have the mirroring to understand what it is, who I am and how to process this, but it's all achievable. Mourning all of this is so very empowering. Our capacity for self-compassion and self-protection grow, and our psyche becomes increasingly user-friendly. I love Pete Walker's words, okay? These are his words, and they are from this book, okay, which is also very user-friendly. And he just nails it beautifully. I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you being able to talk to you if I hadn't done significant amounts of this work. It is empowering. Our psyche does become very user-friendly, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place to be when we can get there too. And I want to affirm for you that this work is priceless. It is necessary. It is freeing and fulfilling, and I want to encourage you to take the step of faith and start doing it, okay? I love you all dearly. Thanks for watching today, and I will be back at 9 a.m. again tomorrow in group so that we can have another conversation, and we'll go through the different stages of grief. Okay, again, they're very different for us with complex PTSD, and I know that you will find it refreshing and help you in your process towards reclaiming who I am. Okay, blessings and dreams. If you are watching on YouTube, remember to hit subscribe so that you can know when the latest video is out. For now, have a wonderful day in the Southern Hemisphere, and in the Northern Hemisphere, have a beautiful, beautiful night and sweet dreams.